गत कलियुगाब्ध 5111 श्री विरोधिनाम संवत्सर माघ मास शुक्ल पक्ष नवमी भानुवासर the 24th day of January Sunday 2010 Shubhodayam. Welcome you all for this Maitri Milan session. A temple construction was going on. A press reporter wanted to run a story on the temple construction. She comes to interview few people who are working there in a village. A fellow was cutting the stone, probably trying to make an idol or trying to build a pillar for the temple. She comes to him and asks, "What is that you are doing?" That person gets irritated because she came and asked, "Don't you see what am I doing? I'm cutting the stone." Harsh voice. "Well, I heard that there is some temple coming here, that's why I have come here. Whether it is temple or anything, it doesn't matter, but the stone is so hard, and then I'm cutting the stone. Are you not enjoying?" He said, "Where is the question of joy? This stone is so hard, my hands get beaten by this particular stone, and morning to evening I'm just beating this stone. It's like somebody has given me some punishment. It may be something like a jail work. And then even if I would like to take a minute of break here and there, like to escape from this work, but the supervisor is always standing on me, watching me. It's such a hell. It's like a punishment. And on top of it, you also come here and disturb me." That fellow gets irritated. And then this lady goes to another person who is also cutting the stone and goes to him and asks, "What is this work that you are doing?" He said, "I'm cutting the stone." "For what?" He said, "Some temple is coming, that's what they say, but it does not matter whether it is a temple work or some other work. I have got family, my wife and kids, I need to take care of them. I have earned money for a piece of duty. It's my responsibility, I just have to discharge it. 8 hours I work. How long do you work? 8 hours I work. And the 8 hours that I get the remuneration. And then I go home. As long as this temple work is going on, so I'm here. Once the temple work is over, I go to some other work. How does it matter?" He is neutral. She goes to the third person who is also doing the same work of cutting the stone, and she asks, "What is that you are doing?" He said, "It is such an extraordinary, wonderful opportunity for me that I can do this temple work. It's like a sadhana, spiritual practice that I am doing here. Look at the stone. From outside, when I did not know about all those things, it looked like stone. But the supervisor, he guided me so beautifully that he made me to cut the stone so that it takes the shape of a nice, wonderful idol. I am so glad that I have come here. Why are you so glad about this temple work? You should know the history behind it. This temple work, my grandfather, he himself thought that we should have a temple in our village. It has not been there for generations, and everybody in our family, whenever there is a festival, they used to go to the next village for doing the offering at the temple. It is the first opportunity. At my grandfather's time, they collected even money, wanted to have this temple, but unfortunately, they could not have this temple because of the war or whatever that situation. Somehow nothing has come up. And at the time of his death, he handed over that work to my father. My father also wanted to do the temple work, got the sanction, permission, money, everything was there. But unfortunately, the year that he wanted to do it, suddenly there was a drought in this area. Then they thought that the money is more important for the drought, taking care of the people rather than spending on this temple. He could not have this temple. At the time of his death, he told that at least during your time, the temple should come. And I'm so glad the temple work has come up now. And every bit of activity that I am doing here is like an offering to the God. How long do you work? How long? In fact, the moment that I get up in the morning, I come to the work, and I am doing some work or the other here. And until night I spend here, and at night I go home for food, bed. What about your food? Ever since this temple work started, somebody or the other is there to feed us. Food automatically comes here. How much remuneration do they give you? But I don't even care for that remuneration. I won't even ask for remuneration because it is my work. You mean to say that the work that I do in my own house, somebody will give me remuneration? In fact, not only me, my wife is also working here. My son is also working here. Everybody works here. How long this work of temple goes on? I wish this temple work goes on forever, for my lifetime, so that we really enjoy this wonderful atmosphere here. Ever since this temple work started, this village, it has become like a festivity. Everybody comes here. People come from far off villages to see that how this temple is growing. I wish this goes on forever. And I feel in my lifetime there is no other spiritual practice that I need to do other than engaging myself in this temple work. See, look at this particular example. 3 people doing the same kind of work, cutting the stone. But the 3 of them feel so different. One feels this is like a hell, another feels this is like an earth, and the third feels that this is like a heaven. So all this difference is not because of the work that you do, but because the attitude with which that you do the work. So that is why it is not the work which is a burden on us, it is not the work which is a tension for us, which is a stress for us, but it is the attitude with which that you work. That's what makes the difference. That's what is the idea of karma yoga. When we say karma has to become a karma yoga, it is not that I give up one work and go to another work. It's not that I give up studying and I go to take up a jhadu and do the jhaduing work. Karma yoga is not dependent on the work that you do, but karma yoga depends upon the attitude behind the work. In what kind of an attitude that you place yourself so that the work that you do becomes not only something which you enjoy, but it gives you a spiritual growth and practice. Why do we have to do that change of an attitude in a work that we do? In fact, very often people see that the work gives them the problem. They mistake that it is all because of the work. Then they reject the work. And they say that work itself is stressful, get out of the work. In fact, please understand that work becomes stressful, but not working becomes all the more stressful. Because work to work is the nature of the creation itself. Look at the whole creation, everything is in this form of an activity. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatutishtatya karma krita. Karyate yavashat karma sarva prakriti jai gunaihi. In the form of the way that the nature ordained, the work goes on continuously, incessantly. The moment that the work stops, the creation stops, or you will be eliminated or you will be dissolved from this particular creation itself. As long as that we are working, so long as we live, or in other words, the life and the work, they are synonymous. Actually, there is nothing like life other than an activity. And that is what we see. Somebody is lying down in a coma state. You are not very sure whether the person is alive or not. What do you see? You see whether there is an activity going on in his heart, whether the activity is going on in the brain. When there is an activity, then you say the person is alive. That means to say, life and work, they are not two separate things. Only thing is that we give up one work and take up another work. But if you have a wrong attitude in one work, you give up that work and take up another work, the attitude continues in the other work. You have certain amount of type of complaints in this work, but then you change the work, then the complaints nature will become different, but complaints still be there, you will still be in hell. So that is why it is not essentially to change the activity, but it is to change the attitude. That's what is Karma Yoga. Krishna works in Bhagavad Gita extraordinary, wonderful details about this Karma Yoga. He has to do that because he has to motivate Arjuna to back into action. And what kind of action Arjuna is doing? In the battlefield, the leader of the army, he has nothing else to do other than leading the army, fighting the war. And if Krishna succeeded in convincing Arjuna to fight the war in a yoga way, that means a war can be fought in a yoga way. I don't think life is difficult to live in a yoga way. So it is not just 1 hour that you practice a yoga, half an hour you practice some pranayama, or sit in front of God and sing some bhajan. These are all parts of yoga, but that itself is not sufficient. How you convert the advantages of yoga, the attitude of yoga that you develop in all these things to see that you can bring it in the regular day-to-day life. That's what is Karma Yoga. In that sense, Karma Yoga is extraordinary, which takes the essence from the Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga and all parts of yoga. At the same time, it has a unique identity because it is something which can go into the every activity that you do. From outside, 2 persons may look alike, but 1 person may not be doing it with the right kind of an attitude. The work can become a burden, work can become a difficulty, whereas for somebody else the attitude may be different. And that work can be something which can really elevate him. And the work or the attitude with which that same work can push you down, can make you suffer, is what is called as Asuri Sampat. And the same work, but what is the attitude with which you do the work so that it can elevate you, it can rise you to the spiritual levels, highest level of realization, and that attitude is what is called as Daivi Sampat. That's why Krishna says, Daivi Sampat, Asuri Sampat, both of them, they are there with you. Daivi Sampat is the divine attitude, Asuri Sampat is the devilish attitude. Sampat means wealth. And we have both these things. But how you use it, how you turn it, that's what is important. If you do the same work with an attitude of anger, jealousy, hatred, greed, competition, when you bring all this kind of things, you might find success for a moment, you might find success temporarily, but the result that you get is supposed to be one which pushes you down. And the same activity you do with an attitude of pleasantness, happiness, service, with all an activity of divinity, when you do that, then the same activity is something which is really elevating, which is something which can take you to the spiritual heights. Now, it is up to you how you do an activity. It is not that any other teacher should help you, no God can help you, but it is you who can help yourself. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Uddhare Atmanatmanam Natmanam Avasadit. Rise yourself up. Don't bring yourself down. It's up to you. Don't get into this desperation. Don't get into depression, despair. Rise yourself. It is not that what work that you do important, but the simple thing is that what attitude with which you do the work. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita gives several suggestions how to change this attitude. We have seen in earlier positions of several things like understand what is karma, what is akarma, what is vikarma. Vikarma is the thing which gives you suffering, and karma, akarma, minus vikarma, removed from the vikarma, is something which is what you can do, is one aspect of it. We also have seen another important position that Krishna takes in Bhagavad Gita, work with an attitude of responsibility, not with an idea of rights. Rights divide us, responsibilities unite us, and that is what we have seen. The karma, the action is in your hands, the fruit of action is in the hands of the divinity. You might want to do some activity in a particular way so that you get a result. That planning, scheming, all those things belong to you. But finally, when you take up an activity, the result what you get does not depend upon you, but depend upon the whole creation itself. That's why he says, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Like that, several ideas that Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita. One very important idea that Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita, which is not available in any other culture other than the Indian culture, and that's what is the attitude, that's what is the activity called as yajna. When Krishna said yajna, it is not that yajna is some different kind of an activity, but it is an activity which is there in every activity that we do. This concept of yajna is very unique, extraordinary. And this is something which is the way that Indian philosophy works. Understanding the creation, understanding the nature in the form of some examples, simile, paradigms. That means to say, you try to find out a symbolic way of understanding that. It is like the way that the milestone on the street, the milestone, the signboard, shows you that you are going in that direction. The signboard may be wonderful, but don't get caught up with the signboard. Continue to proceed. Such extraordinary signboards in the path of spirituality that Indian philosophy has worked and have given us the simile about that. One such thing that Indian philosophy worked is about the fire. Fire has so many such wonderful qualities. Fire is something which is the basis of the whole creation itself. And offering to the fire is the one which makes the fire, keeps the fire alive. And this offering is what is called as yajna, the offering to the fire. When you look at this fire, you see that the fire has something which is visible. You can see the light, you can see the different colors of light. The light goes from the yellow, from the golden color to yellow color up to the blue that you can see. But it does not mean that at the end of the blue the light has stopped. You can see that even after that flame is gone, beyond that, for some distance more, you can still feel the heat of it. That means to say, the fire has a manifested portion of it and there's an unmanifested portion of the fire. So both these things are important. The same way that human being also, there is a manifest aspect of it and unmanifest aspect of it. An unmanifest aspect of it, that is adrushya, is something which is spiritual within you. And then whatever that you see is the drushya aspect of it, that which is manifest aspect of it. There is something which is much beyond that. Another important aspect of the fire is something, you put anything in that, it purifies. Up to the level that even you put the gold ore into the fire and burn it, when it goes through that burning, then the pure gold comes out of it. The same way that this fire is known as tapa. Tapas means to see that how you can remove your impurities and then bring out pure consciousness out of that. So this is how essentially the fire has been used. The third important aspect is you can see that the fire, whatever the way that the fire is, it always glows in the upward direction. The fire always goes in the upward direction, or when you make the fire to go in the upward direction, and that's what is the natural way of fire. And we also have fire within us, and this fire aspect within us is what is known as prana. And this prana, when it is in the form of non-unmanifest, it is not flowing in the upward direction. That is when we call it as the prana is locked up. The locked up, the language that you use is coiled. And the coiled prana is what we call it as kundalini. Kundalini is not a different source. It is the same energy that you are breathing. It is the same energy which is responsible for all your activities. And the whole process of meditation is something which you make this energy to move in the upward direction. When the energy flows in the downward direction, like the way that the water which flows in the downward direction, you look at the water which is on the top of the Himalayas, it is white, bright, crystal clear, pure, beautiful taste. Everything is there on the top of the hills of Himalayas. But the same water flows downwards, goes through all ups and downs and all that, and the process when it reaches lower regions, it lost all its luster, it lost all its youthfulness, jubilance, and it becomes docile, and by the time it reaches ocean, it becomes saltish. The taste is gone. And that's how essentially that left the prana alone, when it allowed it to flow downwards, it loses its luster, it loses its youthful vigor and all those things. Whereas the same prana, when you move it upwards, and that prana becomes the spiritual energy. And the whole process of meditation is to see that how we can make this prana to move in the upward direction. In fact, in one of the theories that they say that the animal becomes human being because the prana moved the head regions. And head is something, the brain is something which has such a powerful functioning center because of the simple reason that it works with the prana which moves in the upward direction. So let us move this prana in the upward direction, and the pratika, the image that they have selected for that is the yajna fire. And offering into this yajna fire, what we do is the offering of ourselves into that. That's what is the symbol. Brahmarpanam brahmahavihi brahmarno brahmanahutam brahmaivatena gantavyam brahmakarma samadhina. The whole creation is nothing but the Brahmic activity. Any activity that we do here is nothing but one of the spiritual nature. And that activity is constantly going on. One such activity where you offer the firewood into the fire, that is what you see outside, and similar activity is going on in every way that you see. That hunger is a fire, and the food you offer is the offering that you give to the fire called hunger. And this is not only human being doing, every animal is doing, every living being is doing. Look at the plants. The plant also that offers the food. The animals also offer the food for their hunger, and all those things happen. But look at that, when this particular offering in the plant, when it makes the plant to move in the upward direction, then you can see a beautiful tree that is growing up. If this plant does not allow that prana to go in the upward direction, then you don't have that tree. A big banyan tree started its journey from the bottom of its root. And the same way, that let us make this energy move in the upward direction. And this is what is in the nature going on. But then what happens in the nature, when everywhere it is going on, same thing that's going on within us, but the nature has a natural check, but human being doesn't have a natural check. Like for example, in the plant, there is no other alternative but to move the prana in the upward direction. It is pre-programmed. It is prior determined. Whereas in the case of an animal, look at the animal takes the food, but as long as that there is hunger, takes food, otherwise does not take food. That means to say, the fire is there, offering is there. That offering that you give becomes like an energy, but that energy used for further setting up fire, again hunger comes up and again offering. This is what is the cycle that animal goes through. Every 6 hours, 8 hours, or say 1 day, in some case of animals, some few days, becomes hungry and then offers food and then finishes that food, again becomes hungry. That means to say, the journey of an animal goes from hunger to food, food to hunger, hunger to food. This is what. But in the case of human being, that hunger food is at one level, but you can do something which is much more than that. That's what is an ability human being has. We also don't have to make a journey between hunger and food. But unfortunately what happens, not having this knowledge, how many of us we spend all our time in being hungry and subserving this hunger, again 6 hours later, that 3-4 hours later you feel hungry, again you serve food, and while eating food you start thinking, breakfast time, you already start planning what you do for the lunch, and while eating lunch, immediately you start planning when shall we have tea and what will we have with the tea, and then again by the time of the tea you are thinking about dinner. I mean, what is this? Why are we making that journey? Schumacher said something very nice, very beautiful. He says, in America what they do is that they put water on the grass so that the grass grows up. And then they would like to have see beautiful grass. But then when the grass grows bigger than the size, then the county, the district authorities, they send reminders to you, please cut the grass. So you need to cut the grass. If you don't cut the grass will grow, and then you will be reminded about that. If you do not water the grass, if you water the grass naturally grows. If you don't water the grass becomes dry. That means you are caught up in the cycle of watering the grass and then cutting the grass. That's why it says, what is an average American? Schumacher says that average American is somebody who waters the grass during the weekdays and weekend he cuts the grass. That's all he is doing. Which means essentially that he doesn't grow 1 inch beyond the ground level. That means to say you are only at that Mooladhara Chakra. Why not you go to a higher level? That's what, if you are interested in the material world, that means to say food, hunger, greed, and about the sex, these are all the things which bind you at the lower level. Can we take our energy to the higher level, to the deeper level? And that's what is the whole journey of offering ourselves to this particular thing. The moment that you are giving food, recognize that food is not to bind you at the base level. The food is to see that you are satisfied at the base level, but the rest of the journey you go in the upward direction. That's why Brahmarpanam, that is what we say. Here in the fire, that offering that we give in the form of ghee is also for the fire. And Brahmahavi, Brahmagno, Brahmanamtam, Brahmaivatena Ganthavyam. When does it go towards Brahman? Is when you offer yourself like the ghee. This is a very beautiful analogy that Indian philosophy talked about. The analogy is that ghee is something you do not get naturally. Naturally what you get is milk. And the milk you put it into the fire, it only stops the fire. It cannot make the fire to glow. But this milk, you need to churn it. You need to first of all curdle it. That means to say you need to give it a shift in its shape. And then the milk becomes curd. Once it becomes curd, then you have to churn it. You have to nicely churn it. Then butter will be separated from this milk, buttermilk. Then it will not mix with the milk. This butter is not coming from outside. It is there hidden inside the milk itself, inside the curd itself. But when you churn it, then the butter comes out. But even that butter is also not sufficient. You need to burn it on a very simple, gentle flame. And on that flame, when you burn it, it starts boiling. Once it boils, then it gives out ghee. And that clarified butter, ghee, when you bring it out, and that you put into the fire, fire glows. The same way that you offer yourself as you are, it doesn't help. But you need to go through in a analogical way. That means to say, the whole process is, first of all, you need to change give a shift to your approach in life. Your life is not for the sake of material growth, it is for a spiritual journey. This change that takes place in the first place is what is the offering, that first thing. Then you go through the sadhana, the spiritual sadhana, meditation, yoga, all these things are like the way that you judge yourself. When you do all those things, the best will come out of it. This is what all our acharyas have said in different ways. Particularly, Shankaracharya said that you are yourself the God, offer yourself the divinity that is within you, you rise yourself. The same thing Ramanuja said in the form of, you surrender to the God in a qualified way, otherwise you are the divinity. Whereas Madhva said that you be humble all the time. The humility is the way that you take yourself to the higher journey. And this is what is the Madhva. The great saint from Udupi, he said, and today is an extraordinary day of Madhva Navami. And let us try to remember this great saint. And let us take a vow that let us not be arrogant, let us be humble, as an offering ourselves to the great saint's words called Madhvacharya. Namaste.